There we go. So tonight we're going to try and discuss the concept of smichut parshiyot, which means why is this next to that? So before we get into the actual discussion of how the Midrash uses it, the question is, what do you think? Why would you juxtapose two different things? Why would you put one section next to the other one?
Sorry, could you clarify what you mean by?
Meaning, why would we here to make it a little clearer? Let's go on to our first example, more this week's parsha, right? So we have this week's parsha. Again, here's a summary of the 4 chapters as well as the 4. This week actually the parshiyot actually correspond to being actual parshiyot in the Torah, meaning actually corresponding to having breaks on each side of it in the Torah itself, not just in the chapter. Not just, the person who randomly decided to, the nice Christian monk who decided to number it for us, but rather in the actual text of the Gemara, the Chumash as well. It has actual either ptuch or stum before after every single one of these. So these are the 4 sections we have. So what are our 4 sections? So we have Yosef becoming hated by his brothers and his eventual sale. Okay. So then that's the first section. Next we have Yehuda and Tamar incident. Then we have Yosef with, so I'm logging on. 1 second. Let's just wait for her to be on. Okay. Here, so to summarize, so we're discussing, take a step back, as we're talking about juxtaposition of events. So the question is, why are events in a certain order, and why is certain events placed next to other ones? And what does that teach us about the story overall? Right? What do we learn based on the juxtaposition of one event to another event? Okay. So, so going through there's 4 basic chapters, we can call them scenes, going on this week's parsha. We have Yosef being hated by his brothers, which is largely Yosef's fault. Then leading to Yosef's sale by the brothers. Then we have Yehuda and Tamar incident. Basically, that's where Yehuda leaves his brothers and then decides to marry Tamar, non-Jewish woman. And then and all the complications that arise from that. For more on that, I'll explain when we get to that point. And then we also have so that's Yehuda and Tamar incident. If you're not sure what it is, feel free to open it up while I'm talking, because it's very interesting. Actually, I gave an entire share on this a month back. I'll post the link if anybody's interested. Just let me know. Then we have, and after that, after Yehuda and Tamar, then we return back to our story with Yosef, right? With him being told to Potiphar, what happens when he's in Potiphar's house, when he gets thrown in jail again. And then we finally have this, and then the last chapter 40, is Yosef being in jail with Paro's baker and vintner. So, or Sarah Mashkim and Sarah Ophim, for those who don't speak fancy English. Okay, so that's what we have going on this week's parsha. But the question is, about what's the parsha is going to come up, is why in this particular order, and why is the Yehuda and Tamar incident smack dab in the middle of this story about Yosef, right? All about Yosef in the first part. Yosef's definitely the main person, right? That's in 37, 39, and 40. Yosef is definitely the one we care about. Yehuda, sure, everybody else is involved, but it's clearly focused on Yosef. And all of a sudden we have this the sidebar talking about Yehuda and Tamar. So what's going on? Why is it there? Why this order? Couldn't we finish talking about Yosef and then get back to Yehuda and Tamar? Because when you look at the chronology, if you try to do the chronology, you'll also notice that they overlap, right? Yosef's being sold, right? Seemingly this doesn't take place over the span of many years. Yet, right, the Yehuda and Tamar story has to take place over a minimum of, it takes place over the course of several years, because Yehuda has to have time to get married, have 3 kids, have them grow up, and then have them, give birth to kids. So so clearly timeline-wise, they're overlapping a lot. Okay, Graham, I'm going to mute you. Feel free to unmute if you have any comments. It's a little bit noisy where you are.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So whenever you want to unmute, you can feel free to. Just this way, no, we won't get a background loop. Okay. So the question is, again, what's with this ordering of events? Why in this fashion? Right? What's going on? So to this effect, we have a Midrash. Okay. So let's head on over to the Midrash. Okay. So everybody see the text? Okay, I apologize for if it looks a little granulated. That's because my computer was liking to crash when I did it in full resolution mode. So now it's in lower resolution. My apologies, but hopefully it's just still big enough for me to read. If not, let me know and I'll go in and increase the font size. Okay, so why this order of events? So, right. So as far as which pasuk we're trying to figure out why this is. So right. So basically we're starting from Vayeshev Etahi. So as you see here, right, we've got Bereshit 38. We have you see here we've got 38:1 and we've got 39:1. So right. So let's go back again just to see what. Right. So what's the question here? Right. Again. So it says why in this time? Why is it interrupted? Right. Because we should be going about Yosef being sold is at the end of. Here, so let's go back one, right? So Yosef is being sold in the end of 37, and Yosef is still being sold in the end of 39, right? So that basically looks like it's one set of transactions. Yosef trading hands. So then why are we all of a sudden all the way back here? Like what's going on? So that's what we're trying to figure out. Okay, so we're still trying to figure out what's going on in terms of that. Then we get to, right, so that's where this Midrash comes in. It's saying what's going on with this interesting insertion of the Yehuda and Tamar story in the middle of Yosef's sale. Why is it in the middle? Okay, so now before we look at the Midrash's answers, let me go back to the empty page so we can not be distracted by the answers. And what could it be? Oh, there we go. Okay, right? Why would we put things next? Oh, I think we went back too far. Sorry about that. Okay, so why would we put things next to each other? What do we think?
They're related. There's a common connection, a common theme with them.
Right, there's a common theme, so you put them together so that you'll know to compare the two of them. Very good. I agree. Right, that'd be the standard reason why you put them together to show that they're connected. What other reasons do we have that we can think of? Why else do we put things two things? We have because
maybe you wanted.
Yeah.
Me?
Yes.
Maybe contrast them.
Right, to contrast them.
Maybe
right?
you want to contrast.
Very good. Right.
Yeah.
So we got two options now to see whether they're similar or to say whether they're different. Right. That's a standard. Those would be the good reason to put things next to each other. There's also a bad reason to put things next to each other, which is, what's the bad reason? The bad reason is random chance.
I was gonna say no reason. Yeah.
Right, no reason, right? They're just together next to each other. No good reason. Just you had to put it somewhere. Right. So odds are nobody's gonna like it's just random because it's the Torah. Things aren't simply just there for nothing, right? Every word is precious, especially when we have what here is really clearly a deviation from the standard storyline. The question begs why. Yes.
Okay, so both Yosef and Yehuda go on to be leaders. They're both leaders in their own right. They both right. So it's just you could see how each of them handles the situation differently. Yosef has, or is handled differently in the situation and what transpires. Now Yehuda is like the leader. He ultimately says, Sadka Mimeni, is that what it is?
Yes, Sadka Mimeni, yes.
Right. So Yehuda is the leader who is always like able to notice what he did and do tshuva, versus Yosef, who either is mixed in something or Yosef is a totally different personality than Yehuda, and it's pretty obvious when you see them together.
Right, they're different personalities. We're trying to compare. Right, good. Right, we're going to compare the two of them. So Now, okay, so excellent suggestion. We'll say that you actually have one of the sides of the Midrash, so we'll have you read that that side of the Midrash will be yours to say. Okay. Yes. So don't worry. They'll be reading for you. It'll be English. Don't worry. It'll be clear. You just might want to turn your screen sideways to make sure so it can still be a little bit easier for you to read it. But maybe put it sideways so you can zoom in and see it nice and big. Okay. So now let's head into the Midrash, right? So now we have one idea. So now let's see how the Midrash plays out. Okay, so this translation is taken from Sefaria. So, right, so again, Hebrew is on the right, English on the left. We're going to read the English because, and again, whenever the Hebrew word is relevant, then, either I'll point it to the Hebrew or sometimes the English will have it transliterated, which will hopefully help too. Okay?
Me?
Yeah, go
Okay,
for it.
what is written above the matter? And the Midianites said to him, the Midianites sold him to Egypt. And then it interrupts with the story of Yehuda and Tamar. And it was at that time. And the reading only required it to immediately say, and Yosef was taken down to Egypt, Genesis 39:1. And because of what was this section made proximate to that. Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Yochanan answered this. Rabbi Elazar said, in order to make one descent proximate to the other descent. Rabbi Yochanan said, in order to make one use of the word recognize proximate to the other use of the word recognize.
Okay.
Rabbi,
so before we get to the next one, let's look at these two ones first, and then before we get to the third one. Okay. So let's see. What do we mean by descent, and recognize. So let's look at the psukim inside. Here we go. So the parallel descent. Okay, so what are the two descents that we're comparing? We said Yerida, right? In the Hebrew was relatively clear which one was referencing, because one said Hurad, one said Vayered, right? But here it'll be right. Hopefully this will be even clearer because now we see the whole pasuk. So whose descent and what descent are we comparing? Right. So this is what you had said, right? We're comparing between, on the one hand, Yehuda's descent versus that of Yosef. So the question is, what would we learn? What the question is, what does that help us with? Right? What would you infer based on that? Yeah.
There's a commonality. Yeah, the Yehuda separated from his brothers, and Yosef was also separated from his brothers, and there's something to learn from this.
Right. So the question is, what to learn? Do we think? So let me give some options. Do we think that Yosef's separation caused Yehuda's separation, or do we think that they are as in like something about the incident made Yehuda want to leave, or do we think maybe they're parallel and it's just to show to compare and contrast? Which one do we, like? Let's see. Or is there another option I can give? Are they parallel, or are they are they parallel but different, or do one cause the other one and therefore they're much more connected? What do we think?
Oh.
Yes.
How could they really be parallel? One of them went of his own volition and the other one was taken. So they're not really parallel.
Correct.
Like Yehuda all the way along, we see Yehuda is always in control of his own destiny. Whatever he's doing, he's he knows what he's doing.
Right.
Maybe it's right, maybe it's not right, but he's sort of in control of what he's doing. In this instance, it's Yosef Hurad. He was taken down to Mitzrayim.
Correct. Right. So therefore, to say that they're truly parallel is a little bit misleading. Right. But as far as is it serving to highlight, let's say the use of both words being the Shoresh Yered, it is bringing us attention to compare them though. So we don't think that they're parallel, in fact that it's the same thing. We're thinking more that they're different types of descents.
Right. So Yehuda didn't save his brother, right? So his brother went down to Egypt, and then Yehuda was had to dislocate from his brothers because he was involved in. He was the leader, and he was involved in the sale of Yosef and didn't save Yosef. So it's like a mita keneged mita, right, for both of them.
right, he caused his brother to go down, and then or he's also going to get he's going to go down as well because of
Right.
what he did. So it's a punishment. Good. Right. So these are all right. So these are all potential reads of what Yehuda means. Right. Because when we go back for a second to the Midrash, right, it doesn't explicate it fully. Right. So there are various other Midrashim and Parshanim that fully explicate it to various effects. For the Midrash, right, the question is which story you're comparing with. Clearly, the point is to make you compare what Yehuda's descent with Yosef's descent. That's the goal. Okay, that's Rabbi Elazar's opinion. So, right, so which story are we comparing? Right, it's Yehuda versus Yosef. But there's another option, and that's what Rabbi Yochanan says, right? When he says the haker lahaker. So what's the other option we could have? Yeah, I apologize for not
To
being
recognize.
Right.
That's an easier one. That's an easier one because when the brothers they dipped Yosef's coat into blood and took it to their father and say, "Hey, do you recognize this coat?" Right. So they sort of tricked their father with that, and then with Yehuda and Tamar, she comes up with the simanim, and pulls them out in public and says, "Hey, Yehuda, do you recognize these? Who do they belong to?" Right. It's the same thing.
Right. Very good.
Mida keneged mida.
Right. This is direct Mida keneged Mida. Right. As Leah Carly points out. Right. I have very little to add. Exactly. Right. You hear the psukim in front of you. Right. Should learn it by heart. But for those of us who aren't quite as who haven't quite reviewed the parsha yet, the right. So here it is. Right. So these two. Right. Again. End of chapter 37. End of chapter 38. The parallel is just like screaming out to you. Right. So we're showing why did Yehuda what led to Yehuda's descent? And why was Yehuda in this bad predicament? Right? Because of what he did to his father, right? What he and his brothers did, like they deserve this, right? Mida keneged mida, you're getting paid back with this also. Right? So, but there's also something interesting is that what happens after the again the end of the Yehuda and Tamar incident, where Tamar had been married to two of Yehuda's sons, and then they both died due to their sins. God kills them. Not right. On the other hand, Yehuda thinks she's a witch, and therefore decides to not let his youngest son Shelah marry her, and then she gets desperate and she tries to ask Yehuda to let her marry Shelah, but instead, Yehuda propositions her, and she agrees. Again, not that Yehuda knew that Tamar was Tamar when this happened, but she pretends to be a harlot, and then you pay for her services, and then she gets pregnant, and then now she's pregnant, and now time to burn her at the stake. Because what else do we do? Right, burn her at the stake. So yeah, so not so polite, but that's just how it goes sometimes. And then so then Tamar is giving Yehuda a chance to do tshuva, and Yehuda takes it, right? In this verse, right? Yehuda, right? When we see that Yehuda recognized, he opposed to before, where he 100% dropped the ball, right? This is Yehuda's tshuva moment, right? So here you're right. Yehuda is showing a lot of growth. Before he covered up everything, right? And that's what the whole. Do you recognize this or not? It was a deliberate cover up, and now he's doing the opposite. It's not a cover up anymore. Right now it's he could have covered up, but he chose to not, and that's why Yehuda ends up being Yehuda, and ends up being the forefather of David HaMelech, who also makes mistakes and then admits them publicly, even though that we're great personal expense. And that's why, we like them as our leaders, because it's important that a leader can admit when he made a mistake and not just, blame it on, a random official or something else, but it's important to take responsibility when you actually make mistakes. Right. So again, Yehuda could have covered it up. He didn't. And then, he takes responsibility. The question is, how do you take responsibility? Which again, we discussed that more in depth if you caught, again, that the share I gave on just the Yehuda and Tamar incident, I gave that around, I think it was priestly. So yeah, basically we said either he took care of her, meaning he made sure to be a proper husband for her from here on out, or again, that's one opinion. Another opinion is that, again, these are both quoted by Rashi, one of which is the shot is when it says Yosef over the Atah, he never knew her again biblically, which would mean that he never again spent the night with her, right? Never, right? Just provided for her, but never actually married her, but never like actually, fully consummated the marriage. Again, we can say is that right or not, but again, that's one opinion. And that's how he was atoned for his, not having had control of himself before. The other option being is that he never stopped being married to her like that. So, i.e., he properly went through a proper marriage process and married her fully, and that was how we did tshuva, right? So those, again, that's not spoken. What will be the better version of tshuva for Yehuda? But either way, they agree that Yehuda did the ideal form of tshuva and dealt with this incident properly. Okay, so again, we're trying to compare those two things, right? Again, one caused the other one, but luckily, Yehuda takes his he's given his his chance to return, and he takes it, which is good. As opposed to before, right? So again, so it seems like the parallel that's being mentioned by Rabbi Yochanan is a much more positive. I mean, well, yes, it's negative, but it also comes with a positive aspect too, than that of that of Rabbi Elazar's. Okay, but there's still one more potential. I mean, at least from this set, there'll be more at the end also. Okay, I'm just giving you a heads up. We're going to be ending a couple minutes earlier than normal. We're going to have to aim to end it around 5 to 8 because there's another shiur at 8 o'clock. Right, the pre-Hanukkah learn-a-thon. I'll post the link in the chat towards the end. Also, towards the end, we're going to try and I have a surprise already leading up to Hanukkah. So I'll explain that when we get towards the end. Okay, just wanted to give everybody a heads up. So stay on. Okay, so now let's get to the third option for now. Right, what did both Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Yochanan are comparing what happens with Yosef to the previous Yehuda. Why is Yehuda being inserted here? Is to compare Yehuda's story with part of the previous chapter, right? Both of the psukim that we just quoted, and so we had, actually, I guess the Yehuda Mitzrayim was actually kind of both. So it's both 39 and 37, right? But it's primarily to throw it back to the sale, right? Or something involving Yosef. And that's the reason why they're exposed, to compare the sale of Yosef and surrounding it with what happened with Yehuda. Like those two events are connected, right? Yosef's sale and Yehuda's leaving his brothers and going and and what happens with Tamar, right? Those two incidents are intertwined and linked. Question is which part is to which, or you could even say that both of those are meant to be seen. And you would I would not very much agree with you if you were saying that both of those are intended. But there's another option that we can look at, which is there's another thing it could be comparing it to. Okay, so you could also compare it not just prior, right, as we said here, not just comparing Yehuda and Tamar to Yosef's sale, but also you could compare Yehuda and Tamar to Potiphar, and what happens with Potiphar and Potiphar's wife, which is that's for Shmuel bar Nachman's opinion. So who would like to justify some really seedy and salacious events? Anybody?
Who would like? What's the question?
I see Leon unmuted.
Oh yeah, I can read it.
Okay.
Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachman said, in order to make the story of Tamar proximate to the story of Potiphar's wife, to tell you that just as that one, the incident of Tamar, was for the sake of heaven, so too this one, the incident of Potiphar's wife, was meant for the sake of heaven. As Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi said, she saw through her astrology that she was destined to raise a child from him, Yosef, but she did not know if it would be from her or from her daughter. This is the meaning of what is written, let the diviners of months inform you from that which will come to you.
Okay, right, so here, all right, so then we have the interesting comparison between Tamar and Ancient Potiphar, right? If you're looking at what happened, right, it seems like Ancient Potiphar is very much the aggressor, as opposed to Tamar, who is the abused. Right? Meaning like Tamar is not the one who's in charge, right? Tamar, right? She gets wronged, right? From what is representation of the psukim, right? Tamar is the, right? So again, her husband's sin, and therefore she ends up being widowed because of their sins. Yehuda is unfair in withholding his son, and right, and then she is then forced to whatever she does in terms of tricking. Yehuda is out of desperation, not really because of anything that deserve it. On the other hand, we have Potiphar, who seemingly appears to be a bored housewife who attacks the pretty boy. Right? So it's in like,
Okay, wait a second.
they're very far apart, like super far apart. You're like, come on, like there's no way you compare these two. But this Midrash says, nope. They were both meant, they're both trying in a good sense. Okay, but what was the problem with Potiphar? That she got confused by her astrology. Her astrology tripped her up. That was the problem.
Okay.
Yes.
Right. Okay, so, but really Tamar, maybe I wasn't paying close enough attention, but the Tamar wasn't really, it was trickery, but it wasn't trickery. She was trying to fulfill, in her head, the ends justified the means, because she was supposed to have a baby from Yehuda's line.
Right.
And she took matters into her own hands to do that. So the trickery was, okay, maybe, we call trickery, okay, so yes, it was trickery, but it was like the end justifies the means, was what she was doing, as opposed to
Asia. Agree that she was right to take extreme action, right? People, you don't look at Tamar and say, I can't believe she did that. You're like, fair, right? Nobody's like,
I don't know about that, but the other story is a little bit to bring it up to, loosely. It's like, in the movie The Graduate, when the mother seduces the son, and really he loves the daughter.
I don't think I saw that movie, but yes.
Mrs. Robinson.
Oh, okay. I definitely did not see that movie, but yes, I understand the concept, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And they're coming from a totally different point. Like even if she was looking at her astrology.
Agreed. I'm not saying that again, this is what he says, right? This is Rabbi Shmuel said that that there was proper intent. For other possible justifications for Potiphar, I have an interesting midrash on that, which if you stick around at the end, I'll say it at the end. It's a little crazy, but yeah, if you want to hear that, I'll do that at the end. I've been told it's a little, we'll leave that off. Okay, yeah, there are other ways justified Potiphar's actions. Right, so again, we will revisit it then if we have time. Okay, but again, it's saying that there is a possible, reason. Just like they each had their reasons, so don't judge them so harshly. So let's look at the psukim, and then if you really want, I can give you the midrash my explanation of the events. That would probably take the rest of our time. So let's quickly. So again here, so as far as astrology being the quote from Yeshayahu. So if we look over here, so this is Yeshayahu critiquing everybody who's busy using witchcraft instead of believing in God. Right, so you are helpless despite all your art. Let them stand up and help you now. The scanners of heaven, the stargazers who announce month by month, whatever will come upon you. See, they are become like straw, fire consumes them. They cannot save themselves from the power of the flame. This is no call for warming oneself, no fire to sit by. So, right, basically saying witchcraft is a really bad idea. It's not going to help you. It's going to be worse than it's just don't do it. It's gonna mess you over. It's gonna make you make mistakes. So don't use astrology. It's just not going to be helpful. Okay. So next we have right. So that seemingly wouldn't work. Okay. So now time. Okay. So let's here. So again, so in terms of the midrash itself, it then goes into give some other examples. We're not really quite have time to go into fully as we did the other ones because there's still more on our part that I'm gonna get to. So I'll just do it. I'll explain it outside. Okay, so some say in terms of the juxtaposition. So one of them is juxtaposition in regards to in Gan Eden, right? So as far as what led to the whole incident of the snake. So the snake, right? Because it says that that the Adam and Chava weren't embarrassed being naked, and then it says that the snake was sly. So again, so what made the snake do his, tricking, trying to make Chava eat from the Eitz Hadat, from the tree of knowledge, was because, well, he saw her, he saw Adam and Chava together, thought she was beautiful, and then he decided he wanted to steal Chava. Okay, that's what they learned from those mythical parashiyot there. Yeah, not gonna get into that again. For more, if you want to see it more, it's here. Again, if you go to Sefaria, this is translated there as well. Okay, so next we have, it continues on to talks about the case by Daniel. Again, where we're comparing why there's multiple kings, saying it's comparing, two different types of kingdoms, two different types of rulers, and saying how one's destruction is next to the other one's destruction as well. Okay, now there's another one from Daniel as well. Again, apologize for not having time to get into the whole thing, but again, short on time. So, right, the other one is in regards to comparing them again here, right? Again, comparing Belshazzar and Daryavesh, right? Belshazzar being bad, Daryavesh being good, right? So rather, the point is to show that like this king led to the other king, to show that really God really is in control. Okay. All right. Okay. That's 80. Okay. So now that we've done that, so now we are right again. So now that for more, we want to read more about that Midrash again. You want to read more about other types of mythical parashiyot. Again, it's in the Midrash. There's many other examples throughout Midrash in general, but those are a couple. If you want to look into more, but we're going to try and focus on our story. Right? Why is things out of order here? So we have another one. Okay. So now this is a more of a midrashic read in the sense that it's less in terms of telling people to compare the two stories. It's going to tell us what we can learn out from the comparison of the two stories. Okay. So this one is again a little bit different. So Yosef. Here, so again, in interest of time, I'll do the reading. My apologies. So here too, it should have said, and Yosef was taken down to Egypt, and it is also written, Yehuda went down from his brothers. So what is this? These two teach us that Yehuda said, let us disperse ourselves. The whole time we are together, the contract is found for a collection, right? Using the word for the root mem sadi hey, right? Right, for being apparent and able to be collected. Right, then God said, 10 men are found stealing. So wait, are they not all? If any one of them is caught, aren't they all caught? And once they were found with the goblet, they said, the Lord has found, again, to use the word matzah, right, the sin of your servants. So basically saying they thought they got away with it. They thought they had this great scheme. Turned out that they were not quite as good as they were. Then we have, adding on to this, we have Rabbi Levi saying that what is it similar to? It is like one who empties mimatzeh again. So this again looking like the same, a similar root of emptying the barrel and leaving it with leaves it with the sediments. So then you try to thought you did a good job cleaning it up and covering up your what you were hiding, but it turns out you did not do a very good job at all. So I'm sorry, but it's your fault, right? But you're gonna get caught. Right, so here, as opposed to before, where we said the comparison was to contrast the two, or to say that this one caused the other one. It seems to be that Yehuda's leaving was basically another attempt at a cover-up, right? So then it seems like it's much more damning. It's not only of Yehuda this time, but it extends also to the rest of the brothers too, right? All the brothers are now considered to be part of this. This as well, they're all guilty, and it's not just Yehuda who's going down, they're all going down. Okay, so again, we're still comparing. So now this Yerida is now extended much farther. It's not just the Yerida of Yehuda versus Yosef, but it also has when they go down to Egypt later. Okay, so instead of it being this again, this is not quite the same thing as the Parashiyot, but again, it's based on the Shnei Parashiyot combined with a Gzer Shav of matzah. Okay, the fact that all those matzahs are spelled differently, the answer is Xer Shavas don't always necessarily have to be the same word. Why? Because I don't have a good. I wish there was a good reason, but like there is no good reason. Like sometimes, like when they do these midrashic comparisons, even halachic, sometimes like you'd be like, wait, but the answer is like if you have Masorah, like you have tradition, this is the way to do it. You can do it, but there's a reason why you need tradition for halachic reasons. If you use Xer Shav as opposed to midrashically, midrashically again, you have much more free reign. You say it sounds like that, sounds like that. You're welcome to, but for halachic reasons, there's a reason why we don't let like again. Some Xer shows look like this one does, and that's why you need a Masorah for. Okay, so we still have, again, sorry for running through this. Just wanting to make sure we can get to the full story. So again, so we have 2 more sections. Okay, so now another example of how one thing led to the other one, right? So again, this is within the same thing of comparing Yosef's descent to their descent. So this is a hybrid of both Vayered and Haker, as we'll see in a second. So Rabbi said, Yehuda said, let us take care of ourselves. In the past, Yaakov was required to get his wives to marry, but now that he is involved in his sackcloth and in his fasting, it is not appropriate that he get us wives to marry. Brother said to Yehuda, are you not our head? Get up and take care of yourself. Immediately Yehuda descended. Descent, since he married a non-Jewish, descent for him that he had to bury his wife and sons. So as far as Liana mentioned before about the Midah Keneged Midah, and it being the just desserts for having done what they done to Yaakov, this is very clearly comparing, this is not just saying that because of the Haker, this is saying that the Yerida that they went down in was directly caused by their actions prior, right? Because of what they did and what they did to Yaakov, it led to them being, it led to Yehuda intermarrying, as well as the later death of his wife and sons. Yes. Somebody ask a question? Yes.
Me?
Yes, Mom.
I have a question.
Please ask.
But none of them, but was any of them Jewish, or are you just saying that they were Jewish or acceptable because they were from, let's say, Abraham's family and they went with them? But there was no Jewish yet. There was no to say that he married. So did he marry someone who was a Kanani? Did he marry someone
Yes. So her name is Bat Shua HaKanani, is the name of Yehuda's wife.
Okay, so right. Okay, so it's not Jewish. It's just not like it's not.
Again, I translated the Midrash. The Midrash says that she's not Jewish. She's a Goya. That's the Midrash's word. Okay.
Fine.
So
okay, fine, but it doesn't make sense because there were no Jews yet.
Well, there were again. For instance, Yitzchak and Yaakov specifically married relatives, like meaning their first cousin or their first cousins, right? Specifically and deliberately were instructed to do so. And Esav is very much criticized for taking 2 wives from the people living in the land. And once he sees that Yaakov was sent all the way to Haran to get a wife who's not descendant of people living in the land, he makes sure to go marry one of Ishmael's daughters.
Right. Okay.
Okay. So then clearly, it's a known problem marrying Canaanite women.
So in that instance, though, Goya doesn't mean not Jewish. Goya means strange. From not related.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Sometimes in Jewish literature, it also even if they are Jewish, we still have a mila of marrying your relative. Nowadays, not necessarily, but there are many instances where that is mentioned in the literature, such as in Jobit. That's an apocryphal. So, but yeah, there are other ones also again, like as I said again, because that's again, not nowadays it's not necessarily a good idea because of the genetic diseases, but again, it used to be
genetics, right?
That it's a great idea to marry your cousin, right? Because again, marrying relatives is considered to be a good idea. Nowadays, I don't think most people would not find that to be a good idea, but that was the prevailing practice for a long time, and there was a basis for it. Okay. Okay, now let's do the lat. Okay, so that's basically that. Okay, so we're gonna have that. Okay, so if you'd like, okay, so let me post in the. Here we go. So let's just do a quick summary, and then I'll. Okay, Okay, so no more screen sharing, just gonna give you a summary and hopefully this will make sense. Okay, so we discussed juxtaposition of the chapters, right? We noticed that we're talking about Yosef's sale, right? And then all of a sudden it's interrupted with a story involving Yehuda and Tamar. And the question is, why is it inserted at this exact point? So we saw many different opinions in the Midrash of which part of the story is it serving to compare it or contrast it with, right? The question was we comparing Yehuda with Yosef's sale, or right at the beginning of the story, or are we comparing the end of the story, right? That was the main. Most people were comparing, everything that happened with Yehuda, what happened with Yosef, right? In terms of as he was being sold and what the people did wrong to Yaakov. And that's what most of the Midrash's opinions were. And we also saw there's also one opinion that said it was to compare the two incidents of sexual deviance, to give a little bit more of a justification for saying they're both done for the sake of heaven. Again, what that means and does it fully justify in the end, right? So that was the question. But we see that based on the order of events, that the Midrash and the extent of which you say which events are the important events that are being paralleled, you can get to very interesting conclusions. Okay? Okay, so we're gonna stop recording.